we can go ahead and get started, I think. Thanks to everyone for coming to another masterclass. Bit this person. So, okay, cool. Thank you. Today, we're going to be going over kind of a high level overview of what we call quote to cash process. Essentially, the start to finish walkthrough of essentially you talking to a customer, providing them a quote, to essentially you shipping that order and collecting payment on it. And quick introductions. I know most of you probably know my face by now, but my name is Curtis. I am one of the customer success managers here. And today also with me, we have Mike Wright, our CTO. So we'll do a little bit of a walkthrough on the desktop client, kind of show you that quote to cash process on there, and then we'll finish up with that process on the web client. And again, as per usual, if you guys have any questions, feel free to raise your hand virtually or just throw something in the chat, and we'll get to it. If there's anything you want to see or something you want us to dive a little bit deeper into, please just let us know. So with that, I will kick it over to Mike to start us off with the desktop client.
Sweet. Thank you, Curtis. Got my screen share going here. Let me know if you can see this okay.
Yep, I got it. Sweet.
All right. So I'm in the Rover desktop. Should be familiar to most of you. This is the .NET version. So if you're still running on the legacy version that we call it, a little bit of a different look and feel, but the structure is the same effectively, and all the command names are the same. Quote to cash in the desktop really starts around SOQuote.e. You can see at the bottom here, I've gone ahead and queued up each of the forms that we'll be stepping through here. So let's dig right in, shall we? So got a customer walks in, you want to get them a quote, or calls in, emails in, what have you. You want to get them a quote for some product. This is the form to do it. We start off finding the customer if we have them on the system. So we can do a search here. We'll take this customer coming back. If we knew the exact ID, we could type that into pretty typical of Rover form fields, right? ID and lookup stuff is interchangeable. You can see a lot of information auto-populated in here. The system is set up so that based off of your configuration, you really can be on autopilot for a lot of this stuff. So everybody's experience here will vary a little bit based off of your MRK and quote configurations. But the system has a capacity really to just kind of drive you through things, which is, I think, pretty cool. So along the way here in this demo, if you're thinking like, or if you see something where I just kind of breeze through it and you're like, wait, we always have to do that automatically, right? Raise your hand. There may be an opportunity to get you configured or updated or something to that effect to do what you need to do more effectively there. But we got all our quote header fields here. We can go ahead and add some product to the order too, or to the quote rather. So we'll do a search here, same deal. I can scan in or type in the SKU in full, but it also does the lookup here if I would prefer to do a partial match. We'll take this guy coming up. If I click into the quantity field here, you'll see my price matrix, quantity-based price break matrix all fill in. So you can tinker with this stuff if you need to, or if you have it where it's defined in the system and driven by the part information, you can just let that rip. That's nice because then the customer knows, hey, depending on how much I end up ordering, I'll get these price breaks. So we can go on. There's additional levels of detail available through each line. You can also configure shipping tax, set some other stuff, but this really can be kind of, grip it and rip it, as they say. So we're going to save it. You also, along the way, as I think most people have seen, have the opportunity to print, email. We'll do this. Let's take a default name. That's fine. And we got quote 1089. Great. So that's SO quote. So got the quote, handed that off. Customer comes back and says they're ready to order. The form that drives that is SO.E. So we can come to SO.E and we can, instead of having to like replay all of the information from the quote, we can actually seed the order based off of the previous quote. So if we come over to the quote field here and enter in 1089, tab through that, enter through that, click out of it, whatever you're used to doing there. We'll see the rest of the information from the quote starts to fill in here to give us context on the order, right? And this was just, straightforward quote, one product. You'll notice quantity information doesn't convey automatically. That's because the quote is containing it's a quote of the price breaks available based off of the quantity they order. The quote is not like the explicit instruction, hey, for sure, just give me 10 of these things. So your touch here is a little bit different where you're coming into the quantity field and you're saying, okay, now the customer says they want to buy 10 of these things. And you'll note the system will check the price break matrix based off of that quantity to make any pricing adjustments here necessary. So, we go to 10, cool, knocks the price down to 130. System let me know it was doing that. Great. We can fill in a date here too. Let's say that, order it for Friday. Perfect. Similar kind of deal to the SO quote side. There becomes a lot of additional information you can add to the order. If you're doing discounts, if you want to control scheduling more, if you want to put it under a hold status for a little bit, there's additional levels of detail too that you can add at the line level. So really the orders can take the shape of really whatever kind of complexity you might want to throw at it. But the system is also configurable so that you really don't have to go into each of these areas and tinker with each area. If you have a repeatable process, right? If you, like a smell test thing here would be if you had users who were like, oh, 100% of the time when I do an order, I have to go take this action and that action and that action. Like those are perfect candidate things to look at and say, well, hey, wait a second. Is that just an opportunity for us to update our configuration or upgrade our system to get to a point where that stuff just ends up automated, right? Similar kind of deal to what we saw on the quote side, tax and shipping configuration options and all kinds of other stuff in here, but we're just going to save it. This customer, perfect. So because this customer has exceeded the amount of credit they're configured to have, we get this prompt saying, hey, wait a second, do you want to put this order on credit hold? We'll still create it, right, and just put it on the hold status. We'll say no here for demo purposes, but and then because we used a part actually that's configured as a manufactured part to trigger work orders, we get this prompt too. So that's a nice thing for those of you who are manufacturing what you're selling. If you're not using the automation between sales orders and work orders, let us know, because that's a prime spot to go look at your parts configurations and really like streamline that process, right? Here, I'm just going to say, okay, did create the work order 1038. We can go look at that in a minute. We can also see that data reflected on the sales order. So we'll say, okay, here. Same deal with more options, but right, if I want to get this as a PDF, if I want to email it, you got all kinds of options coming out of here. And we get SO 5214. So we'll take a peek for a second, 52114, just to pull this back up and illustrate something on the work order side. So you note that whole notion that it automatically created the work order for us. You do see that information associated with the record here at the detail level, right? So if we want to go look at that work order, we can go open that up, right click on the field, w.e, and here we go. This is the work order that was created for that part. For that order. Let's bail out of here now. 5214 is our order number. So we go through our process and we're ready to ship this thing. Ship.e is where we pick things up next. So we'll come in here. I'm going to say sales order 5214. Type that correctly. Cool, just one part, pretty straightforward. But let's create the shipper, right? So save this. Same deal. If I want to get a pack slip or a pick list, I can do that as this is happening.
Real quick,
And the
Mike, I got
shippers.
a question from
Oh,
Amir. Sorry to interrupt
yeah,
you.
yeah.
Amir said, just curious why the work order got scheduled for release on 8/25, 2 days back date.
Interesting. Yeah, I'd have to look at the configuration in that the sales demo system. So I blame Curtis or Bill or Jake or somebody from the team for messing with something in there. But yeah, like that is a valid thing to look at. Like presumably, Amir, you don't see that happening on your system. Are you using the auto create work order function, or are you guys creating your work orders manually at the moment?
Both.
Interesting. So we're happy to dig into those types of scenarios a bit more if you're kind of seeing any problems with your own scheduling, I'd say.
In my
Um,
experience, with work orders, if the manufacturing lead time doesn't quite jive with the routing time, then you can have a disconnect there.
yeah, that's certainly one scenario. Thanks, Jeff. So we got our shipper. We'll pop over into ship.e2 now. Our shipment ID 5214-1. Here's just the rest of the detail pulled up. We've already got a ship via configured. Status, we're going to mark this as shipped. If we needed to tinker with anything at the line item level, again, we have opportunities to dig into more information about the record before we push forward. But this can be pretty straightforward depending on your process and your system configuration. Same deal as we're used to seeing too. Once we're committing the record to the system, we get this prompt opportunities to print all kinds of documents or email all kinds of documents. We filed that. Great. Now we'll bail into, I suppose Bill wanted me to call out too, if along the way you were like, ooh, let me go get that like pick list from it, you could bail into ship.r1 later on to go print that stuff out if we needed to. So that becomes an option. But for our purposes here, we'll go into ship.p1 next and 5214-1. That's our shipment. We run this process. It's posted it and it's created the invoice. So a little different here. You don't, because this is a process report, basically, you're getting a report output coming back versus the prompt that you see on the Windows side with the confirmation of the record ID. But here we know, okay, cool. We got our invoice, our AR record, 14019. Okay, so that's been marked shipped now. And if we come over to AR.e and load that up, boom, we see our invoice. Tax and everything along the way, right? We're getting all that stuff calculated for us. So similar kind of call out if you're in a situation where your team is manually calculating tax, let us know because the system can automate that stuff. And then we also have a more extensive partnership opportunity in play too to turn on Avalara if you're not using that platform to handle sales tax for you. So here we go. Here's our AR record. We need to put it into collections or something like that. We can bail into the collections tab, and the system doesn't have any collection status stuff configured on it, so those are empty. But depending on your process, if you have a team that's really doing a lot of follow-up collections effort, there's some stuff you can do around the AR to better track kind of state of the record and state of what your team has done to contact the customer and cure the delinquency. But again, for our purposes, we will continue along to cash.e because we got a customer who's received their goods, got the invoice, they're ready to pay, and we can use cash.e now to take care of all that. So I'm going to drop down and I'm going to put, line 1 invoice here, pull in. Oh, sure, that's a good reminder. Got to fill in my customer first. This is customer 27, but let's do this. Restart that, customer 27. Oh. Why is it doing everything? Oh, I see. That checkbox got checked on me. I don't want to load OpenAR. Nope. We'll go the long way. Normally, you can have that disabled. That's really like, so you can see if you're in a situation where you got a customer with a lot of AR records and you tend to leave them open, you might not want to have that flag defaulted so that when you come in, you can be a little bit more targeted with the invoices that you want to add to the cash record. Unless you've got a customer who's like, hey, I'm going to pay for everything right now, right? So go ahead and queue them all up. Be aware that can be nice. It could also be a pain in the butt, depending on what you're trying to do. Here, we got a customer paying today, so we'll just take that. Status, we're going to say posted because we're about to post this in a second. Cash payment, that's fine. If you're using Rover Pay for credit card or ACH, you can dig into that stuff too from here, but we're not going to take a credit card or ACH today for this. My payment amount is going to be for the full amount. So we've got that, no convenience fees, check number. You don't have to put something here, but cash is fine. Just again, for any reporting that you might do that's showing the check number field, it just gives you yet another thing saying, hey, this was cash, not check. Amount applied down here. Clicking through that, we're going to apply all. Okay, cool. No cash account. We didn't get our cash account defaulted. Oh, yeah. If you don't see that, click into it and it'll fill in. So there we go. There's our cash record, 896. So we've now gone through this process, right, where we created the quote, we converted it to an order, we shipped the order, we created the invoice as a result of that, and then took the payment against the invoice to close out the receivable. It's a lot going on here. That's a lot of forms to bounce through. Depending on the depth of your team, you may or may not have all of these responsibilities living with the same group. And depending on your process and your customers, right? We have some customers where that whole round trip happens one day and one person and one series of interactions driving everything because it's very real time. And we have other customers, of course, where the quote might be on the system for 2 months and then the order is placed and the order might be there for a while. And, it's very drawn out as a result just because the process is not going to be as quick. So the nice thing is, right, of the system and the process is not like, it's very flexible in that way, right? To meet you where your business is at in terms of what your workflow looks like as you're selling to your customers and how those responsibilities are delegated out to your team as a result, whether it's one person who's responsible for writing and fulfilling and then actually collecting, or if it's different groups of individuals, right? Questions? Stop my screen share for a minute.
Yep, Greg's got a question.
What's up, Greg?
Hey, can you go back to so.e for me?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Our so.e does not have that part cost and GPGM columns. Is that in the standard product?
Yes, this system is running maybe a month behind current. If we check the release dates here. Yeah, so ACE is pretty recent. M3 is from last month. I mean, this sales demo system is maintained effectively as a production system. So if you don't see those on your forms, it's likely that your M3 version is just a bit behind this one.
Okay. I noticed also on your so.e it didn't fill in. Is that just because that data is not there on the demo?
Yeah, this one's not configured to use it. Yeah. So fields there. The desktop's not very forgiving in that way, where like if you're not configured to use it, the forms don't really adapt to show or like hide that stuff based off your configuration a lot of the time. It's just like, hey, it's all there, right? Unless you have a custom version of the form where someone's gone in and physically removed those fields in the designer from the form. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I think as you'll see in a minute, the Curtis will show the web side of it. The web, I would say, is a lot more forgiving in terms of if the thing's not being used, the interface just isn't going to show it. And there's a lot of stuff where, like, if for any of you who are familiar with Rover's control forms, since I'm here, I'm not going to go over all of it, but like MRK control, if any of you have like historical familiarity with it, this thing is blown wide open now in terms of handling a lot of the stuff that drives the web side of it too. There's some stuff sprinkled into the first few tabs, but then all of these other tabs, point of sale, select customer, on, these are toggles that like drive feature functionality on the web. So you literally get into situations where the web's not showing something because your MRK control record just doesn't have that thing turned on, right? And it ends up being a little different from the desktop experience of, oh yeah, the gross profit column is there, but nothing's happening with it, right? Other questions? That was a great one. Thanks, Greg.
Yeah, sorry. So how do you get the latest and greatest ACE and client?
Curtis?
Greg, you are on my list. It is a slow moving list. So I apologize, but we do have you down to get that updated. Exactly when that's going to be, I don't know. I'll have to talk to Andrew. But you're on my list. You're pretty high up there as a priority because I know I owe you one. So let me talk with Andrew and I can shoot you over an email or something with a bit more of a better timeline.
We don't love that answer either, right? I will say, like, the fact that upgrades, historically, for people who have been on Rover for a long time, you kind of hear upgrade and it's like, ooh, like, that's a process to do that. But there's been a lot of investment into the back end of Rover to try to streamline that. So we're not there yet, but upgrading you now, there, like if Andrew were the person talking to you about it, you'll know like some of the stuff that you have will go into what's called the BPC, which is now a home for the customized version of your system so that structurally it's not blended in with everything else. The user experience really doesn't change too much based off of that, but it means technically it becomes a lot easier to move a system forward to the latest version. So there's been a lot of core process improvements there because we're trying to take it from being a conversation of you receiving an upgrade to one of you receiving an update, right? And I think updates, people just human instinct when I've got like a system update kind of a thing that lands a little bit softer than upgrades, where it's like, ooh, there's a Herculean kind of efforts required to move my system to latest and greatest. So they appreciate patience along the way here. We've not yet felt the benefit of the smoothing over of that process, but understand that's what we're working towards from a product perspective, is to just get you set up so that your system can be receiving updates regularly instead of it having to be, a periodic, scheduled, prescribed, Herculean kind of effort. Sorry for that detour, Curtis.
Nope, you're good. All good on the desktop side? No other questions? Sweet. Okay, so I'm going to dive into the website now. So this process is going to be essentially very similar to kind of what Mike just walked you through on the desktop version. Just we're going to be doing it on the web client now. The goal with the web is just making it easier. So, less clicks, less screens, more streamlined. So to start, you log into your web client. We're going to go ahead down to the point of sale module here, and select our customer. We're still going to use our guys over at Evans Supply. Click into them, and then we'll select our transaction type. We're going to do quote because that's going to be our first step here. And then from here, you have a couple different options to select your part. You can select by category. So you can go demo parts, and you can see the different parts that we have, laid out in that category. Also here, you can have images loaded up on some parts if you do images. That way you can see, exactly what that part is. For this case, we're going to use the same part number that Mike was using. So we'll search by part number. And we got our guys here. And then so from here, we're going to go ahead and, select our quantity. One thing here too is if you notice as we move through this, it will, oops. We'll go ahead and we'll change that quantity. We'll do 10. We'll go ahead and we'll add it to the cart. And then so this is going to be our cart. So you can just go through if you want to add more parts, you add more parts. For this example, we're just going to keep just this one part on here. But we can click into the shopping cart here. You can see those same kind of price breaks that Mike was showing on the desktop version. You can edit those here. They're already done for us, so we're not going to do that. Close, add quote information. So down here, if you have different shipping locations for customers, you can select, which address you want to ship that to. You have your notes down here if you want to add anything, and then different quote information fields. You can set these to whatever you like. If there's certain fields that you want to add to the quote information that are required to be filled out before you can create the quote, you can do that. So we're just going to go ahead and we're going to create the quote. Boom. So there we go. We just created quote 1090. That essentially was SOQuote.e that Mike was running through. And so to turn that into an order, it's super simple. You just go to your quotes, 1090. This is a quote we just made. Good. Click into it. From here, you have the ability to edit the quote, copy the quote, excuse me, create order from quote, download it or email it. Here, we're just going to go ahead and create order from quote. Load up that same shopping cart, confirm our quantity, confirm our pricing. If you want to add anything last minute, you can. Same as before, you just add it to the cart. We'll hit add order information. Kind of same thing here. If there's any fields that you guys would want to add to be required to be filled out prior to creating the order, you can do that, and those will all be here.
Hey, real quick, Curtis, too. One,
Yep.
It's a subtle thing, but recall in SOQuote.e, you don't get an opportunity to indicate the quantity. You just have the price break matrix in there, and you don't specify the quantity until you're in SO.e. I don't know if anybody noticed here, you are able to indicate the quantity when creating the quote. So that conveyed when Curtis came over here. Not only did the price break information convey, but the quantity conveyed too. He didn't have to put 10 in on the order side the same way we did in SO.e. So just a little thing to note, but so there's some opportunities like that where even though generally what's in the web is what's in the desktop, with just some streamlining around it, there's some like kind of user experience stuff like that too, or even things where like a field didn't exist on the desktop side where we said, hey, there's an opportunity to smooth this piece over in the web too. So sorry, just want to call that out before you kept rolling.
Yep, nope, all good. Cool. So from here, we have everything filled out. Our shopping cart looks good. We're ready to create the order. Click create order, and boom, order number 5215 has been created. So again, just living in the same screen here in the same point of sale module. Once our order is created, we see here order 5215. If you wanted to, you could click into it. And you have a bunch of options here: edit, copy, view, download order. You can email order, print the pick ticket. Real quick too, we'll download this order so you see. There's our order. That's what that would look like. But from here, without even having to click into it, you can see here, finalize order, order number 5215, which is the order we just created. We have a couple options here to finalize the order. You can add a signature if you want, there to be a signature, and then ship order, and you also have ship partial order if you want to do a partial order there. But we'll go ahead and we'll just ship the order. And boom, order 5215, it's been finalized, it's been shipped. And it also gives you the option right away if you want to pay for the invoice that was created for that order now. So we're going to go and click yes. It'll pull us here. These are your different options of paying for this invoice. Card on file, manual card entry, cash, check or e-check. For this example, we're just going to pay cash because it's easiest. Click cash, totals 1407.25, 1407.25, hit submit. We see there that it included that cash payment there, and we will submit the payment. Payment complete. So that's basically the whole process that Mike was running through on the desktop client on the web. A little bit faster, a little bit easier. You're not having to do as much jumping around between screens. And then from here, you can email the receipt, download the receipt.
And Amir
And
just
then-
asked in chat, yeah, so if the order is shipped through the web, there will be no posting process. That's the shipment through the web is the post process. Effectively, when he hit ship, that basically ran ship.p1. So it took care of like blending ship.e and e2 and p1 into one step for you. But for situations where you do really need to lean on like ship.e2 to do partial shipment stuff, that's where we have those hooks on the front end too to go into doing a partial shipment. You can actually, if your shipping process, if you need to originate a PO as part of that, there's a hook to do that as well. So he's showing the kind of nice, simple, streamlined version that's the close cousin to what I had. And your takeaway there is it really just condenses down those steps so you're not having to bounce around a bunch. But so with that, a common theme for the web stuff is it's still using the same fundamental stuff from the desktop side, right? So like when I say it's effectively running ship.p1, it's doing everything but loading up ship.p1, the form, and running that. But it's running all the logic behind the scenes in ship.p1 without having to queue up the interface, right? Which is common to like everything we do on the web, which is the reason, the same reason why the PDF that he showed for the order is the same look and feel of the PDF generated by the system, because it's the same process on the back end. We just have this new interface in front of it. It's a great question.
Sweet. Yeah, so after, we created a quote, created the order from the quote, shipped that order, paid for that order. And then again, in the same module, you can go into invoices, see any sort of past invoices. I'm not sure why the one we just did isn't coming up.
Got your invoice date sort was the other way around. Yeah. So Evan Supplies has a lot of stuff on it. You should have used your Krusty Krab account. I like that one more. It was nice and clean.
Yeah, we'll switch to Krusty Krab real quick.
What you may have been running into there was paging too. That hits like 100 invoices at a time. So if it wasn't sorted by date, like you'd have to keep paging through. Evan Supplies probably has like, I don't know, 5,000 invoices attached to it.
Yeah, this is one I made yesterday, invoice that was paid. So you can click on that invoice. You have the option to download it, email it, print it. Shows that it's paid. And then here, you can download the invoice. You see everything that's going on here. Same thing with receipt history. You want to go in and see those receipts for each of those. You can do that as well. I know I ran through this pretty quickly, but any questions? Anything else anyone wants to see?
So Greg says, would you still be using the desktop version when using the web so you can look into details, or would desktop go away? It's your choice. Right now, like we've not even So we've really shied away from implementing it, but technically we've not removed the code from the product that runs even the legacy client. Now, there might be some form differences that stop you from using the legacy client now. But we're not yet at a point where we've obsoleted that stuff. So yeah, if you wanted to run the web and the .NET client in parallel, you can. Curtis and I were connected to the same system here, right? So yeah, dealer's choice there. I think that for my money, that starts to become a question of who your user is and what does their workflow look like, and do you have a capacity to have them live just on one side, especially if they're a person who's not comfortable with too much change, right? And needs kind of a simpler workflow. It's often easier to just go do it here and follow these steps instead of having to know, do this here and then go bail out over here. But the reality is, kind of like I was describing to Amir, this is just a different interface talking to the same system. And generally speaking, it's running all of the same behind the scenes code when we're doing things that get run when you're doing them through the desktop. The desktop is effectively just an interface into all that, like the brains of the ERP too, right? At some point in the future, we might look at it and say, hey, we're going to take away the ability to run the desktop, but that's not where we're at today. And I can't imagine we'll be there anytime soon, just because of the reality of how the product is delivered to customers, right? We actually, if we're hosting you, it's one thing, but for people who are self-hosted, we can't really reach into your system and force you to move to a new version that doesn't support the desktop client, right? It's a great question.
Yeah, and to Mike's point, real quick, just to point out, this quote 1089 here that you're seeing on the web is the one that he created in the desktop. So that's like he was saying, you can use both.
Yeah, 5214 was my order, right? I think if you go into the order tab,
Yeah, I
and
wrote
show
it.
that
I wrote it
PDF.
down. Yeah,
Yeah.
5214. Yep. Yes, you can.
Great questions, guys. Anybody else have anything?
All set?
No,
So just there we go.
I need you to do it all again. No, I
Okay.
guess open it up to the group. What do you guys want to talk about next? I mean, this suggestion came from the Toolright group and a discussion with their team. What would you guys like to cover? Please put it in the chat. Yes, Jessica, the recordings will be available. If you haven't subscribed to the Rover ERP YouTube channel, I would highly recommend it. Our demo day videos go up there. Yeah, so Curtis, can you shoot the
Already on it. Yep.
Awesome. And again, as you guys come up with
Oops.
things or need something, and just shoot Curtis, myself, any of us a note. Just say, hey, I'd love to have this topic covered on a masterclass. This content is created for you, and we want it to be able to just be a workshop to go over the things that you guys are encountering, either with the product or just an industry issue in general. So shoot those suggestions our way.
Yeah, Amir's got one, logistics and shipment tracking from overseas. I love it. And kind of in that vein, like we covered a lot of ground here today, and each of these areas you really could probably do a dedicated 30-minute to 60-minute session on each, and the potential complexity and configuration and customization of each, depending on what you're looking to do, and certainly in reconciling what you may have or may not have in your system today. That holds true whether or not we're talking about the desktop or the web, right? I kind of alluded to it earlier, but the control records in Rover dictate a lot of the web experience. So you know, if you saw anything that piqued your interest in today's stuff and you want to go deeper, like in a conversation around shipping, let us know. Yeah, happy to do it.
Same thing, if you guys have any, yeah, I know AI is a very popular topic, but it's one where people struggle with because it kind of can overpromise, underdeliver. But if you guys have things that you're thinking about, please reach out. We'd love to get thoughts around that and the problems that you think that it can solve.
Sweet.
Right?
All right. Well, thank you, Mike. Thanks everybody for coming. Appreciate all your time. And yeah, like Corey said, couple days, we'll get this uploaded to YouTube. So you guys can use that link that I put in chat there if you want to watch it. Yeah. Thanks again. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Thank you, Curtis.
Yes, sir. Have a good day.